Hello, everyone, and welcome to this first in a series of 3 public forums as we work towards a complete street design of the Bedford-Hartwell corridor. My name is Sheila Page. I'm from the Town of Lexington Planning Office. Ross Murrow, he is here from the Engineering Division, and Sean Dugan of the Town Manager's Office. There's also many more folks, employees of Town of Lexington, as well as elected officials, some from the Select Board and from the Planning Board, as well as folks from Bedford who are in the audience. Your participation is very important to the process of getting to a final project that we want and that we are excited to build. And we are in the early stages of this project. The town manager has created a working group to help guide the public process. Many of the members of the working group are here tonight. In the group, there are representatives from the Select Board, the Planning Board, Conservation Commission, and residents who live and/or work in the area. And several members are bicycle commuters, and all of them care deeply about the town. VHB, our consultant, was selected early last spring, and they've been hard at work gathering information and analyzing existing conditions. We held a kickoff meeting with a joint meeting with the Select Board and the Planning Board on July 26th. That presentation can be found on our lexingtonma.gov Bedford Hartwell website. And the presentation from tonight's meeting and all kind of subsequent information will be posted on that website, where you can also find a link to a survey as well as a comment form where you can pinpoint the locations of your concerns. Please take time to comment and please tell your friends. We really do want to hear your concerns, and we're thankful you're here tonight, and thank you so much for attending. And we do appreciate your comments and your input. Next up is Nancy Farrell from Regina Villa, who is part of the VHP team, and she's going to get the meeting going.
Sheila, thanks so much, and welcome everyone. And I do have to apologize right at the outset. We didn't have enough faith to figure that the Red Sox would be playing at 8:07 tonight. So we will be efficient as possible, but really looking forward to starting this conversation with you as we go through the project. I'm going to start by telling you how we're going to organize the meeting this evening. And we've developed a format that we hope will give everyone an opportunity to weigh in on the issues at this first meeting. And so if we go to the next slide, we can talk about how that's going to happen. So for tonight, as an attendee, you'll be in listen-only mode. Now, that doesn't mean that we won't be listening to you, because you type your question or add a comment at any time during the presentation. I know many of you are very familiar with Zoom, but just take a look. The Q&A is at the bottom of the screen, and you can put your comments and questions in. What we've done is divided the meeting into, there'll be a general introduction to the project, and then we're going to have 3 sets of discussions. And in those, we'll present information and ask you what's important to you and invite you to weigh in as we're talking about how we're going to be developing the rest of the program and the alternatives. We really think you'll also learn later about ways to get involved, which Sheila mentioned, and they'll be on the screen, and you'll be able to visit them when you go back onto the website and look at this presentation. We will, however, ask you when you're making comments, try to be specific about the roadway when you first put down your comments so we can answer accurately. And if we don't know yet, we'll be clear that we don't know yet, but we'll be coming back to you in the future with some kinds of information and ideas. So if you have any problems, please, we have Shay, who is terrific at technology, helps me understand it. So that's really exciting. And you can call Shay during the meeting at 617-607-1598. We'll leave that up for a second. If you're having some technical problems and you can hear an audio only portion of the meeting by dialing the number on the screen, 646-558-8656. And there's a webinar ID and a passcode. So if you have your phone and you're expecting problems, take a quick photo right now and you'll be able to join us by using the audio only portion. So please, just a reminder, when we're in those 3 segments, you'll see, we'll introduce them. we'll invite your comments. You can fill in comments at any point during the Q&A, but if they're specific to a street or roadway, please let us know, because that's the best way for us to be able to address it. Before we get started, I'm going to introduce my colleagues. We have a large and very talented team. Phil Goff is a specialist in urban planning. Laura Castelli does traffic planning. Shay Halley, Shay is our technology expert. Evan Miller is a landscape architect. Bryn Leopold and Ian Banks, transit and parking. And Josh Cohn-Riddy will be doing complete streets. And I have the pleasure of introducing our project manager, Trish Domigan, who's going to start us through the presentation. Trish?
Thank you, Nancy. Can everyone hear me? So just a reminder what the agenda is for this evening, and thank you very much for joining us tonight. We're really excited to do this meeting. We're very excited for the project and to hear what you have to say about some of your visions and some ideas, some concerns that you have about using each of the roadways that we're going to be talking about. So as Nancy just mentioned, we have introductions. I'm going to go over the goals and visions and the purpose of the meeting just briefly. You can visit the town's website for this project and study it a little bit more, but this has been something that's been going on for a long time with the folks in town, as you know, and the goals and visions are on the website. The project study area, this is a quick map of it, and we'll go through it in a little bit more detail on a later slide. And as Nancy said, we're going to be going into existing conditions. Each of the roadways that we're talking about here is going to be a segment, and we're just going to go through some mapping that shows some hard geometrical or missing things in terms of complete streets. We want to hear how you're using the corridors, what would make it easier for you or better, different modes of transportation, if you walk it or bike it or vehicles or even using transit. We want to hear about what works, what doesn't work right now. As I said, it's going to be broken into 3 different segments. Bedford Street we're going to talk about, Hartwell Ave, and then we're going to talk about Wood Street, Eldridge Street, Westview, and get some dialogue going on Winter Street also. At the end of the meeting, we're going to go over next steps and how you can get more feedback to the town. So as Nancy had mentioned, the existing conditions per roadway is going to be broken into 3 segments. You can write out your questions or comments in the Q&A section. Each roadway will be discussed for about 15 minutes. If one extends out a little bit longer, that's okay. We just don't want to focus our attention all on one street and not get through all of the other streets also. And if we have enough time at the very end of the meeting, we're going to go over general Q&A, any comments that you have in general of the project as a whole, some things that you'd like to see in this area of town. So the purpose of the meeting is to get your input on really what the transportation challenges are of the roadways. We're really interested in pedestrian mobility, how you walk down each of the roadways or what could improve the walkability of this area of town. Cycling through it, transit mobility, the bus stops, more services, things like that. Vehicular mobility, everyone has, I'm sure, some comments on how people travel through this area. And then what the general look and feel are of each of the corridors. The town's goals and visions are really to improve mobility and accessibility for all users. They want to make sure that everyone can use each of these roadways to the best way possible that they can provide any amenities or any improvements to the use of the corridors. Safety is a very big concern. Improve the look and feel. A roadway is just a paved surface, but you can make it a complete street, or you can make it a vision of something that is really, really enjoyable to pass through or go to. We want to make sure that impacts to residential streets in terms of traffic is really focused on, try to do things in terms of the design elements that will discourage people from going through the residential streets. And the town is really, we've been working on this project for about 6 months now, and one of the priorities is to make sure that the process is transparent and that there's information provided to you, the community, and that you have a lot of opportunities to give feedback back to the town. So just as a reminder what the project limits are, Hartwell Ave from the Air Force Base gate to Bedford Street, Bedford Street would be from the I-95 bridge, just the bridge, to the Bedford town line. Wood Street is from Mass Ave to Hartwell Ave. Eldridge Street is from Bedford Street to Grove Street, and Westview Street is from Hartwell Ave to McGuire Road. The town also asked us to just ask for feedback on Winter Street, how people use it, if there's any concerns on getting onto Winter Street from Bedford Street, and how it's being used right now. This is a map just showing the study area. You can see that it really does encompass this large area of the town. It goes from I-95 down Bedford Street and includes Eldridge Street, Hartwell Ave, Westview Street, and Wood Street. And Winter Street is not shown on here, but we do want to solicit feedback on that. So going into the existing conditions, as I had mentioned, and just a reminder, 3 different sections for this, this meeting. Bedford Street we're going to talk about first, Hartwell Ave, Wood Street, Eldridge Street, Westview Street, and Winter Street. So, you know, just think about this. If you were taking a look at this map, you were in a meeting that everyone was in person and you had sticky notes, or you had, you know, someone that was part of the design team that you were talking to about a certain element on a roadway, what would you be saying? And that's what we want to hear about tonight is, you know, just some of the comments, some of the things that you'd like to see along each of the roadways, some of the challenges that you may be experiencing. So with that, let's start with the interchange. So the I-95 interchange is here. This map is just showing some of the things that we've observed as we've walked the roadway corridor. So some of the things that we see are challenging ramp weeds. You know, how do people come off the ramp? Is that a challenge for people that are on Bedford Street? You know, we noticed that there was no bike accommodations. What would you like to see for bike accommodations? The sidewalks are only on one side of the street, and how are they operating? Is it easy to navigate around them? There's a lot of no turns allowed for westbound traffic on Bedford Street. How do you feel about that? What would you think would be improved upon that? So I'm just going to give a minute. Just think about what, if you could have any thoughts whatsoever, any desire, any changes to Bedford Street, what would you be thinking of? So this is from the interchange through Bedford Street, where Eldridge Street comes off and where the environmental resource area, the wetland is. You know, how does this section of Bedford Street work for you? You know,
Trish, there are a few comments already. If you want to dig into them, or do you want to keep going first?
Well, let's go through all of Bedford Street and then we'll come back to the comments.
Great.
Is that okay?
Yep.
So how do you navigate this section of Bedford Street? Are there drainage issues? You know, there's an existing box culvert, things like that. Oops, where am I? Sorry. And then the last section of Bedford Street going up to the Bedford town line. How do you feel about navigating that? Is that easy to walk or bike, or, you know, just think about what the goals are for this project. So design team, am I missing anything? Is there anything else that we can think of? Okay, Nancy, I think that we're good to start looking at comments.
Great. So yeah, there's a so Karen Budnick says concern is traffic congestion, speeding, and noting this is a heavily settled district. How do you ensure adhering to speed limits and slower speeds? Ensure this is a family-friendly neighborhood. I reside on Bedford Street and during peak hours feel like I am living on the Long Island Expressway. So clearly there are some concerns there, Trish, that we're going to have to look at.
Laura, do you want to address that?
Hi. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that we are going to look at. We understand all of the issues through observation with traffic along Bedford Street, with congestion along Bedford Street, but also with how close the cars are to people's residences, particularly as you come off the interstate and head towards Bedford. So I think, you know, in addition to trying to find ways to slow that traffic down and make sure everybody is in its place, we'll be looking at whether there's opportunities to realign the roadway so that there's a little bit more space between your front yard and the roadway, which will help make it feel a little bit less like you're living on the Long Island Expressway and a little more like you're living on Bedford Street.
All right. Yeah, there are several comments about traffic overloading Bedford Street. I live in the neighborhood and observed 30 vehicles waiting on Eldridge Street this morning. They're waiting to get into Bedford Street. Bedford to Eldred can be challenging coming from either direction. Not sure if a traffic light would make it better or worse though. Eldred to Bedford as a no left turn, could that be officially limited to weekdays? Yeah, so there clearly a lot of similar concerns on these issues.
Yeah, all good comments, all things that we're going to be considering as we move forward and thinking about how changes to one street might influence another, how we make sure that the Eldridge Street neighborhood is maybe protected a little bit more and alleviated from some of the cut through traffic that happens between Grove and Bedford Street, how we use traffic control and different traffic mode changes to really change the character of the roadway and make people understand that this is a community. This isn't an offshoot of the highway up to points north, but also respecting that it is state highway.
Yeah, and here's another one. Many years, probably decades ago, when there was a possibility that Hanscom Air Force Base might be closed or expanded, the town and the state developed a preliminary plan for a bridge to replace the jug handle intersection of Bedford and Hartwell. This was designed to handle traffic turning into Hartwell from Bedford, heading west. Is this possibility in the conversation? We're trying to build bridges into the neighborhood, but maybe not that large, Trish. I don't know if you're there yet.
So we're not there yet. Right now, we're taking a look at different alternatives for addressing some of the improvements along Bedford Street and some of the traffic issues. With the circulation of the traffic in here, we will be taking different looks to what the solution would be for that. I'm not sure if a bridge would be a solution to that problem. Bridges are, you know, it seems like a good idea, but honestly, there's a lot of structure that would be placed in front of people's houses, and it would segment one side of the street from another. So that's something that really needs to be considered. So we'll take a look at it as one of the options as we advance towards alternatives for the roadways. And we'll take a look. What we do is we put together alternatives, and then we weight advantages, disadvantages, what they're solving and what they're not solving, and to come up with a preferred alternative. So we'll be taking a look at that also. Thank you, Nancy.
So speaking of mobility, we have a couple of bicyclists. One finds biking through the area to be terrifying unless she goes early in the morning on the weekends. She's coming from the Bedford line. And then another says, Bedford Street from Simmons Road to Jug Handle is impossible for bike riders, no protection, hard to cross at Jug Handle. And a third bicyclist, I'm fairly experienced road cyclist. This stretch of Bedford Street is one of the few stretches in Lexington that I completely avoid. So clearly some strong concerns about bicycling.
Right, and one of the things that we will look at is different alternatives for making this a complete street multimodal transportation corridor. You know, our bike lanes, something that we want to take a look at, are separated bike lanes or cycle tracks or shared use paths, something as an alternative that we'll be also considering. So we'll be taking a look at different design elements of different cross sections to accommodate bikers in this area.
And then let's see, a question about a divided roadway on Bedford Street. I know something, we're looking at a wide variety of things because drivers turned illegally into the hotel Beth Israel Hospital daily. And another comment pointing out that the signage on Bedford Street westbound is poor. And I'm sorry, another bike lane comment. Let me just throw this one at you. I would love to see a protected bike lane westbound and eastbound. Additionally, a continuous walkway would be ideal. Currently, I would go out of my way to get to the Minuteman bike path so that I could get to Hartwell Avenue.
So I'll start with the comment about the median. Yes, that is something that we're looking at. I think a really important component to that is how do you create a turnaround for folks that are either living on the north side of the median or working on the south side of Bedford Street. How do you make sure that those folks can head in the opposite direction when the roadway is median divided? And what we saw when we were out there kind of observing along the corridor is that a lot of people today use the interstate, and they actually, if they're trying to go from something on the south side into Bedford, they actually get on the northbound interstate and then get off the Bedford Street exit. So, you know, we'll be looking at options that stop that maneuver and keep people off of the interstate as a U-turn maneuver, both at the interstate ramps and also at the Bedford Hartwell intersection, ways to better facilitate those U-turn movements so that a median divided Bedford Street can be seriously considered and still maintain access. And as part of that, we'll be looking at different kinds of bicycle lanes, protected bicycle lanes, buffered bicycle lanes, shared use paths, sidewalks. All of those things are on the table. It appears that the right of way is wide enough to accommodate them. And we'll be looking at the benefits and the potential impacts of adding them to Bedford Street.
And Laura, I would also add from a landscape architecture perspective that as the transect or the cross section is starting to be figured out and those alternatives that you start to describe are presented, we'll start looking at it from different opportunities to bring in, different types of plant materials, trees, what's the lighting along the corridor currently look like to help improve safety and to create some separation and buffering from those that are using the roadway for vehicular travel and those that are using it for bicycle and pedestrian travel. Just that second level of buffering that goes along in there.
And it also brings the scale down from vehicular to pedestrian and for cycling. So it actually creates a community. So you can create more of a community roadway with the use of plantings and landscape architecture. Thank you. Good point, Evan.
And there's multiple questions and statements here about speeding, the lack of sidewalks, pedestrian issues, need for more crosswalks. Here about anecdotally, the 95 exit ramps are quite dangerous. The exiting vehicle is not giving much time to merge with typically very fast driving traffic in the right-hand lanes. And yeah, so we're at about 11 minutes on this. Do we want to move a little bit, Trish, to the next area? I know we're still getting comments, but we'll be able to collect these and continue.
Sure, that sounds great. And just to remind people, thank you very much for your comments. What we'll do is we'll respond to them, what we're going to do is group them into different categories in terms of, pedestrian mobility, biking mobility, vehicular issues that are along the corridor itself. And then we'll be addressing them because it sounds like there's a lot of themes. And the goal of this project is to make a complete street, universally accessible for all users. So I just want to make sure that people are aware of that. So the next section that we wanted to go to is Hartwell Ave. I wanted to just talk and allow everyone just to think about the intersection of Bedford Street with Hartwell Ave. I know that this is something that a lot of people have a lot of concerns about, a lot of comments and opinions about this intersection. So please feel free, add in your comments about what could be improved at this intersection, what you observe. There are physical constraints that we've observed in terms of ADA accessibility, meaning that there's no crosswalk on Hartwell Ave or the wheelchair ramps aren't up to code, things like that will be addressed. But other things that may be improvements that you would like to see. So I'll just give that a minute.
Yeah, there are several questions on Winter Street, but we'll get back to those, I think, when we get to that segment.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
So this is, just to orient everyone, the intersection of Bedford Street with Hartwell Ave is on the right, and this is going south on Hartwell Ave. What do you think about this section of roadway? How can this be improved? There's a sidewalk on one side of the street. The right-of-way right now is very, very wide. Would it be better to have separated bike facilities on this and have two shared use paths or really wide sidewalk areas, things like that? What would make it easier? How do you use Hartwell Ave? Do you get on the Minuteman Bikeway from Hartwell Ave? Things like that.
So there's a question about, there's been a discussion in the past to remove the traffic light that is at the Hartwell Bedford intersection and replace it with something else. However, if traffic does not come to a stop at that intersection, it's very difficult to come out of Winter Street onto Bedford Street and also turning left into Winter Street. Are we going to consider this issue?
Laura, do you want to address that? Do you want me to address that?
Can address that.
Okay.
So we are going to be looking at the intersection, at different options for the intersection, and one of those options would be a roundabout, which is the only option other than potentially grade separating the intersection that I would consider without a traffic signal. I don't think that there's an option there that puts in stop signs or removes traffic control altogether. But a roundabout is something that we're considering. Preliminarily, it looks like there might not be enough physical space there to put in a roundabout that meets all of the current standards. But that's something that we're considering and looking at, changing the lane utilization, changing how that traffic signal functions and how people can use it, adding another crosswalk across Hartwell and tying that into the recent improvements. The crosswalk that goes along the right turn slip lane, if you're moving from Hartwell Avenue, turning right onto Bedford Street, that's the only crosswalk that's left after those improvements that isn't part of the traffic signal, making that part of the traffic signal. All of those little changes that we can do to really elevate the bicycle and pedestrians prevalence through the intersection, but also controls traffic, we will be considering.
So we have some more comments here. This intersection has seen some great improvements already, much easier for families to cross there to go down Hartwell towards the trail. I think that's the intersection you're talking about, Trish, right?
Yes, it's Bedford Street at Hartwell Ave.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Let's see. A lot of these are about for sure need walking bikeway on each side of Hartwell. Define separated bike and ped access all along Bedford and Hartwell. Let's see. We have a lot of, there's a lot of similarity here in some of the questions. Hartwell Ave from the bike trail to Wood Street is absolutely terrifying for biking and walking. Let's see, it would be great to have sidewalks on either side of Hartwell. Also, it would be wonderful to have a public parking lot to access the Minuteman Bikeway for those that are using it recreationally. Someone suggests 4 lanes on Hartwell. And someone says, what are the perceived shortcomings in the existing condition here? This seems like the one thing that works. So someone likes it. Another question about the roundabout and traffic calming measures should be included along Hartwell Avenue to keep cars from speeding down the street at off hours. Abutters often hear cars accelerating down Hartwell at night.
So one thing that we didn't talk about, I'm just throwing it out there, is parking. There's no on-street parking that's allowed on Hartwell Ave or on Bedford Street. And I wonder if there would be any opportunity or if there would be a demand. Someone mentioned about a public parking lot for the Minuteman. I'm just throwing it out there. Would that be something that would actually narrow the roadway itself to think about just traffic calming measures? So just something to think about.
Yeah, someone observes that there's no reason to go to Hartwell unless you go to a business or the dump or access the Minuteman Bikeway. When there are businesses on Hartwell or housing, having sidewalks on both sides are very important. Separating any bike lanes would be necessary for safety. And also brings up the issue of wetlands are very close to the road in some areas, which I'm sure you will take into account. And of course, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, the wetlands, we have delineated all the wetlands. The base mapping for this has been completed. So we have picked up where the resource areas are. And as this project advances, we'll be taking a look at environmental permitting, because it's really important to reduce the impacts to the greatest extent that we can and still achieve the goals of the project and mitigate for any impacts associated with, you know, some of the improvements. So we will be taking a look at that very seriously as this design advances.
And then someone else says public parking lot on Hartwell would encourage more car traffic. Do we want that? There are other people that have suggested where the Minuteman Trail crosses Hartwell, can a smarter traffic light be put in so when bikers have already crossed the street, cars aren't sitting waiting for several minutes for the light to turn green again? What I'm interested in is that we're getting lots of different mode questions, which is really good
It's great.
to hear,
Yes.
Trish,
Yep.
right? Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much. This is exactly what we're looking for.
Yeah.
So thank you
Yeah.
very much for your input. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. And you're getting on parking on Bedford Street, you're getting opposing yes and
Good.
no. So
Excellent. I'm just throwing it out there because I want to
Okay.
hear from everyone. I want to hear what people have to say about it. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Okay. So we might want to move on because I think we're getting a lot
Okay.
of repeat comments there.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So just from McGuire Road south on, wrong way, on Hartwell Ave, what do you think about this section? So Wood Street is on the left here on the graphic, and this is where the businesses are a little bit more spread out. The roadway seems to narrow a bit. There's no sidewalks on Hartwell Ave at all here. What do people think about this?
And we have to take a minute here, but you know what? We might want to move on to the next one because we probably are a little over on time. So we can
Okay.
keep going through these, but if you want to move on to the next
Sure.
discussion,
Sure. Just the last section on
Okay.
Hartwell Ave is up to the Hanscom Air Force Base gate. And I just want to get people's feedback on what they see as needs and improvements along this section. So
Okay.
please write in your comments.
Okay, let's see. What do I think? I hate it. There's no safe place to walk or bike in that stretch. You got a straight
Thank you very
comment
much.
there.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's see. Make pavement on Hartwell curvy and not straight to calm traffic. Let's see. And then there's a suggestion here about what a good biking loop would be. And more
Okay, great.
restaurants. I think we could all be, well, mostly be in favor of that one. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, let's see. Needs traffic calming and sidewalks in this area. And Hartwell, let's see. This one's incomplete. Waiting. Don't hesitate, folks, as we go on. If you still you're still thinking and you want to add a
Right.
question, please do.
And also just a note that even after this presentation, we're going to show you ways and links that you could add more comments in. So please feel free as you're thinking about this and what we're trying to achieve and hear from you. Just please just let us know what your thoughts are. So the next project the next roadway that we wanted to talk about is Wood Street. And just to get people oriented, Hartwell Ave is on the left and we're going south on Wood Street. I'm sorry, this is a little bit different from the rest of the mapping. I apologize for that. But what do you think about Wood Street going from Hartwell Ave down to Constanoga Road?
Let's see.
How do you think about the sidewalks here and how it's functioning right now? The bus stops, things like that, how is it working?
So we have a few comments. I may not be directly answering those questions, but pre-pandemic, the traffic backed up from the HAB gate to way past Wood Street. This was a problem for people needing to turn into Wood Street or businesses in that area. Another one with MIT lab expansion, make primary access from Hartwell to take traffic off Wood Street. Hartwell Ave South at Wood Street need vehicles exiting Hartwell to business properties not to block through traffic. Let's see. We're back to Hartwell. Treated is, I think this means Wood is treated as a speedway by Hanscom and Hartwell traffic. Turning from Mass Ave to Wood can be challenging.
Okay.
And then I think there's well, I could go on, but I think there's a lot of feeling that Lincoln Labs, Hanscom, Hartwell businesses, et cetera, are causing a burden on Wood Street. And Wood Street is even scarier for biking than that narrower part of Hartwell because of the poor sight distances and narrow roadway, which a couple people have mentioned here.
Okay.
Sidewalks on both sides of Wood would be an improvement. The road is narrow, and creating dedicated bike lanes would make vehicular traffic more difficult. This stretch works okay for an old country road. Please, no rotaries. Let's see. Suggesting truck exclusion on Wood. Again, MIT Lincoln Labs gets out at the end of the day and Wood Street becomes very congested. Visibility along Wood Street, mentioned a couple of times, it's challenging. Traffic in and out of Lincoln Labs is a major challenge, as well as speeding traffic from the lab. Truck exclusion would be good. And Wood Street does not need more trees. So you have a yeah.
Okay, great. So I think we covered everything. How are pedestrians navigating Wood Street? Someone mentioned sidewalks on both sides. How do people feel about that?
Let's see if we got anything else on that. Sidewalk on both sides would be an improvement. The road is narrow and creating dedicated bike lanes would make vehicular traffic more difficult.
Okay.
And bus stops are generally unsafe, especially in the winter when snow piles up.
So making them more accessible would be.
Yeah.
Are there school bus stops on Wood Street specifically?
It says bus. It doesn't say what kind.
Yeah.
Yes, there are school buses
school bus?
and
Okay.
MBTA.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's mixed feelings about sidewalks on both sides, concerned about the narrow roadway. And then other people think sidewalks needed on both sides everywhere.
Okay.
Many school buses on Wood, school buses stop on, wow, everyone answered the school bus question for us.
Excellent.
So yes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
And MBTA buses as well, Trish.
Okay, great. Great. Thank you.
And let's see. Yep, too hard to speed on Wood, says one commenter. Yes, there are school bus stops. Sidewalks are always good. Given the small usage, can we include bicycles somehow? Yeah. Yeah, some strong feelings there, but.
Great. Great. The more comments, the better. So this is fantastic. Okay. Really, thank you very much. Okay, can we move on, or people keep on typing in comments? Should we?
Let's see. I think you've hit a lot on Wood. I think what we've been hearing is pretty consistent.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate it. So the next roadway that we wanted to talk about was Westview Street from Hartwell Ave to McGuire and Summer Street. And how do people feel about navigating that? Understanding that Minuteman crosses and there are no sidewalks right now. How do people feel about Westview Street?
Okay. They're thinking.
Yep.
There's some people doubting that traffic calming will work, especially in Hartwell, that the preference would be to see bike lanes and sidewalk so bicyclists and walkers can stay away from the speeding vehicles. let's see. The T is redoing the bus stop on Wood. We're still catching up on Wood here.
Okay,
Okay, Westwood, crossing on a bike is very dangerous because of poor sight lines. And someone says she runs along this road, but only on weekends. Sidewalks are a must throughout.
okay, great, thank you.
Westview at the Minuteman Crossing is a blind crossing coming from the Hartwell end. And navigating Westview Street is always easy for me, but I do not do rush hour. Lack of sidewalks makes challenging walking on Westview. Again, sidewalks on Westview would be great and safer. And the sight distance is too short for cars and for bikes where the Minuteman crosses Westview.
How about traffic speed?
Let's see. Well, likewise frightening for walking and biking. People are using it as a shortcut and racing along Westview. Make it hard to use for shortcut from Bedford Street to McGuire. Force traffic to the intersection by the dump.
Okay,
Another writer says, we ride our tandem bike on Westview a lot. We find it generally fairly easy to do, except as mentioned above, where the sight lines are poor. And it would be good to enforce the 25-mile-per-hour speed on Wood.
Westview. On Wood Street?
On Wood, this comment is, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Looks like sight lines, speed, sidewalks.
Yep.
You know, there's some themes here.
There is definitely some themes, and thank you very much. We want to make sure that any alternatives that we start designing meet and achieve what you're telling us tonight. So the next roadway that we just want to talk just briefly about some of the concerns that you may have is Winter Street. So Winter Street intersects Bedford Street, and hearing from the town, it seems like it's a cut through roadway to get to Grove Street and back and forth. So just some of your thoughts on Winter Street and how people navigate it would be terrific.
Sidewalks on Winter Street definitely needed, both sides. And another one, sidewalks are a necessity. Winter Street is pretty scary as a pedestrian.
Okay.
And okay. Are you aware that Winter Street is the only means of egress for the 150 homes in Drummer Boy Homes? It is very challenging making a left turn to get to Lexington Center or 128. It is definitely a cut through. I walk this a lot and it can be frightening because it's narrow in places with really short sight distances. Need sidewalks, which is quite the theme tonight.
Yes, yes, it sure is. Yes.
Left turn from Winter Street to Bedford is hazardous. Winter Street is a cut through to Hartwell in the AM, to Grove, and to Route 62 in the PM. Again, sidewalks, numerous comments on sidewalks. Both sides sidewalks would be nice, but unrealistic. One side would be nice. Also, we need to slow down traffic. Sidewalks a must. Cars speed around the corner from Bedford to Winter. No sidewalks on Winter. Coming up from Bedford at the top of the hill, there's a blind curve with no place for walkers to safely get out of the way of cars. One writer says, this is disappointed. This is only a wants and wishes event without presenting the physical and legal constraints, etc. But you could talk a little bit, Trish, about what comes next and why we started here.
Right. So we're still in the data gathering and getting information to educate our designs. And what the the user, the people who live there, what you're experiencing and how we can address some of the concerns that you may have. As Evan had mentioned for Bedford Street, one of the things that we're going to be looking at is aesthetics, but we're also going to be looking at traffic and safety and seeing what the improvements are, what the themes are in terms of, traffic, speed and operations, how people navigate it, what the pedestrians are doing and what the cycling is doing. And once we get to the stage where we'll be presenting different alternatives to you, we will show you the alternatives and the pros and cons with the alternatives. So I'm going to talk a little bit later about what the next steps are. And you can see what we're doing right now is we're getting the information from you. We didn't want to come in here with cross sections already addressed or, some of the things, what you should do. I want to hear it from you on what you want to do, and then we can see what can be done in terms of design development.
Yeah, and now I want to add that so far we've had 171 questions, statements, which is terrific.
It's awesome.
But you will have an opportunity if you didn't hear your specific question, because I'm really trying to combine themes and share those. You will see at the end that there's a survey that you can take and provide more information. Then there's a mapping tool. So please, this is not the only time you will get to share your ideas with us. So let me back in here to Winter Street. Winter Street and Eldridge and everything in between to Grove Street are big cut throughs. People have to get to their destination, but it would be much better 25 miles or even less at rush hour. Also about turning, you don't want to make a left turn out of Winter Street into Bedford Street, except possibly in the middle of the night. Again, turning left onto Bedford from Winter, often have to take a chance and turn into the left lane. Excuse me. Winter Street is definitely a cut through. You can wait multiple light cycles before you're able to make a left turn. Carriage drive to John Benson improvements helped, made it more attractive so drivers avoid the tighter sky view volunteer leg. Good work on that. Let's see, this person, let's see. Visibility from Pfeiffer Lane turning into Winter Street toward Bedford Street is difficult because sight lines are poor. And this writer says that speeding has to be addressed in Lexington. Let's see. Right at the base of Winter Street is where Bedford Street narrows, so generally very awkward and dangerous situation when cars speed by on Bedford, so it's very dangerous, especially in the winter because of the hill. Though making 2 lanes for the people coming from Bedford to Lexington to turn left onto Winter Street has been a big help. Is the MBTA bus stop on Bedford Street East near Winter Street being removed? This is also a source of congestion on Bedford Street heading east. I know, Laura, I know you're going to be talking to the MBTA, but I don't think we know this answer yet, do we?
We don't, but we are going to be talking to the MBTA about a whole host of things in this area. I see Bryn turn her camera on. She may know more.
Okay. Bryn?
I was mostly going to reiterate what Laura said. The MBTA is undergoing a couple initiatives out here in the Hartwell, Bedford area, as well as conducting its comprehensive bus network redesign. So part of the effort may include rerouting or redesigning some of the routes, including the 76 and 62 that run along here.
Okay. So as we gather that information, it'll be part of the what we're sharing with the community as we learn it.
Absolutely, and I know that they're also considering, that there've been changes during the pandemic to those bus routes, and they're considering whether those changes go back to what they used to be, morph into something different. There's a lot of opportunity, and I think that they see the opportunities here and are very interested in talking with us. And I think, I've seen a few comments trickle in on transit. There haven't been a ton. But one thing, I saw a couple comments about stops, and I just wanted to note that we're going to be looking at all of the bus stops. And that includes in places where we're going to be providing new bicycle accommodations or a different kind of bicycle accommodation that's provided today. We really are going to be thinking about how to separate the bus stop users as well as the bicyclists and pedestrians, particularly when we were talking about sidewalk level, separated bike lanes and things of that nature. So all of those things are under consideration, as is moving bus stops from the near side of the traffic signal, which is when you stop at the red light, to the far side of the traffic signal, which is when the bus can process through the light and then stop, as ways of handling some of the congestion that I'm seeing come in the comments around the bus stop areas.
Great, thank you. And if you have any other questions on transit that you want us to be thinking about, that Laura and Bryn mentioned, please jump right in now. We have a couple more on Winter Street. Left turn from Winter onto Bedford towards town could be improved a lot simply by making Bedford Street traffic stay in one lane until past Winter. People use the left turn lane as a straight shot, making the intersection more dangerous. Even merely repainting the lines could help. That's great. Thank you. Thank you for thinking about that. I'm getting a positive impression of the design team, but I'll suggest that the design team should walk or bike or both these streets and roads to get firsthand data. I'd be happy to join in a tour, and I bet others in the area would also. Well, we will keep that in mind, and I got your name here, so you may hear from us. Will questions from folks be published as submitted or consolidated and edited by the group? I prefer you do both. Okay. I don't think we had actually decided that yet, but we are going to try to make sure that all the themes and details that are presented tonight are reflected in our summary and how we report on it. Also, this a recording will be available, so you can go back through and look at it as well.
That's right.
Has the town considered building satellite parking underground at 475 Bedford where T and other public buses can work? Oh, I don't know. We don't know. Do we know the answer to that? Let's see. More and more children are riding bikes and riding them to school where possible. We can encourage that by building wider sidewalks in all neighborhoods to allow them and others to ride safely. This writer underscores the difficulty of exiting Winter Street in winter with slippery snow on road surface due to the steep decline of the hill at that intersection. And we need plenty of vegetation on these streets, especially islands and medians, so that they are not wastelands and heat spots.
That's right. That's
Good
right.
suggestion. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, thank
but
you.
no more trees on Wood Street.
Okay, we did
Right.
hear that.
Yes, we did hear that.
Yeah. And then someone else says 475 Bedford is privately owned, so not sure about putting underground parking there. So,
Yes,
okay.
you know, we will take a look at the comment and get the town's feedback on that, but I'm not sure if that would be a wise decision to make. That's all.
Okay. All right. So
Right,
Trish,
should
do you have
On
any
to
more?
Eldridge Street.
Yeah.
So Eldridge Street is the last roadway that we wanted to just talk about and, you know, get your feedback on how you experience Eldridge Street, you know, how you navigate Bedford Street from, you know, to and from Eldridge Street. I understand that it's a pass through to Grove Street. You know, how are you using it from a pedestrian perspective? There's a sidewalk on one side, but it's narrow. There's very large trees on Eldridge Street. What do you think about Eldridge Street and how, what if you had something to improve upon, what would that be?
You know, while we're waiting, we did have a question about Bedford and how it will be. Let's see. Let me see if I can go back and find that one. I can't. We'll try to address it afterwards.
Okay.
Let's see.
And thank you so much for your patience on just typing in Q&A. I know that typically in a meeting like this, a public meeting, people get to speak, but it was just a lot of material to go over. And we had to document everything so that we can address all the comments. This is great. This is fabulous. So thank you.
Here's one on Eldred. A lot of cars use Eldred to make U-turns because of the lack of left turns on Bedford.
Okay. So they drive
Um,
into Eldred and then turn around right at the intersection with Bedford Street and then drive back out again? Is that how they navigate it?
I don't know. It says here, your map shows left turns prohibited onto Bedford Street, but I see cars ignore that, much as they do from Bedford Street into driveways with no left turn signs. And Eldridge Street is a major pass-through and folks speed along the way. Also, folks who exit driveways along the south side of Bedford are forced to turn right. But for folks who really want to turn left, they enter and make a U-turn. This is very dangerous. This is the U-turn issue again.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
I don't know how people living on Bedford Street ever make a left turn. Traffic speeding off 128, and there are 2 lanes to contend with. That makes it even hard even to make a right turn. Also, it's clearly a major cut through. Can the land under the power lines be ped and bike accessible from Bedford to Grove Street? That's an interesting question, which we will.
So, yes, but one of the things that people have to think about is the land under the power lines, at least a portion of it is wetlands and resource areas.
Okay.
So that's something that, it's a sensitive area that we would have to be very conscientious of.
Let's see, this is really about busing. Before the pandemic, I commuted on the MBTA Route 62 bus to Alewife, and my buddies from the Eldridge Street area couldn't cross the street to catch the bus unless they went up to the jug handle.
So the town did install a hawk signal, so a pedestrian crossing signal, I think right near Eldridge Street. So that's
Okay,
something
that would
that
help.
was an
Yeah.
improvement. Yeah. Yep.
Again, the U-turn, people bang U-turns all the time, just 25 feet from Bedford Street. Well, that doesn't sound very safe.
No.
And let's take a compliment here, Trish. Thank you for a well-organized, inclusive, and thoughtful meeting.
Oh, thank you very much. That's very nice.
The power line question is related to the West Lexington Greenway plan.
Okay.
Eldred is basically the only way to access Grove, which makes that whole area challenging coming in and out. The left turn onto Eldred is hard with speeding cars off the highway. The right turn onto Eldred is hard because cars are speeding off the highway and there is a way too long solid white line. It's like a video game trying to get off Eldred without anyone rear-ending you.
Oh, no.
No, that doesn't
Oh,
sound
that's
good.
not good. Yeah. No, we'll take a look at that for sure.
And someone says she has never seen the crosswalk near Eldred used. Oh,
Okay.
okay. Let's see. Oh. This is really back to Bedford, but as a side note, when there are snowbanks along Bedford, one has to peek around the snowbank, and fast-moving cars that have exited 128 or in the right-hand lane cannot be seen easily. My son lost the frontmost 6 inches of his car because someone was speeding along close to the snowbank. Oh, that's not good news
Okay.
either.
No.
Oh, and then someone else has seen the crosswalk near Eldred used. So
Okay, good.
we're getting lots of great observations. There's a late note here about Wood Street. Trees on the non-sidewalk side are frequently responsible for power outages. I don't know if utility poles and trees along the street are in scope, but it's worth keeping in mind that utility poles and trees are very close to the road on that side, so there isn't currently a lot of room to work with. Yeah.
Nancy, I can make a comment to that too.
Sure, Evan, thank you.
Yeah, as we move forward, we'll definitely work with the tree warden in town and the tree committee. We know that a lot of the growth out here is mature trees. There was a tree master plan and inventory done a while ago, and it noted that the majority of the trees in Lexington are actually Norway maples, which is an invasive species, but still provides a lot of good benefits of trees. So when we come through this and we come back and look at reestablishing vegetation, we'll obviously prioritize native drought-tolerant plant material, and we'll work with the utility companies to best select material that in the future won't interfere with the overhead utilities to reduce power outages in the future. Those utility companies have a good selection that are good roadway trees that have salt tolerant and urban condition tolerant, but then will not max out in height to interfere with the power lines. So as we come through in the future, our tree selection will then be in line with best tree, best fit area.
So the other thing too, I just wanted to mention on the non-sidewalk side of Wood Street, if we did install a sidewalk on that side, we would be removing some of the trees that are really super close to the roadway and that interfere with the wires. So that's something to think about too. I don't know if that would be something that the town would consider, but putting a sidewalk in would have a barrier between the tree canopy itself and the utility pole. So that's something to think about.
Well, there's a couple people ahead of us. Please look at undergrounding wires or getting rid of the utility poles as part of this project and burying the lines. So there we go.
Yep.
Let's see. Now that the crossing signal is near Eldridge, a solid barrier should be on Bedford Road to force the jug handle. The intersection at Simon's Raid should be redesigned to accommodate U-turns. And then we're getting some really just general ones I think that people are thinking of. Trish.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it would be helpful if the speed limit along Bedford Street were 20 miles an hour and posted often, particularly coming from across the overpass. I think people see the highway and speed up in both directions.
So one of the things that people have to think about, and this is just some consideration, is that the state owns this section of Bedford Street.
Mm-hmm.
So any speed regulations or any changes to the speed limit has to be approved by not only the town, but also the Department of Transportation for Massachusetts.
Yeah, there are quite a few people who think burying the poles and burying the lines is great. Yeah.
Right. It's a great idea, and a lot of communities really look into it. I help a lot of communities coordinate with the utility companies. That the issue is the cost associated with putting the utilities underground and the length of time it takes to put them underground. So it used to be $1 million a mile. It's more like $10 million a mile, depending on the type of utility. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's a pretty costly endeavor to put the wires underground. It's a great idea. No one wants to see wires. It's just very costly.
Yeah. Yes, and another writer comments that on Wood Street, some of the trees have come down in storms and cuts off power to the street. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Good to know.
And another writer says that where someone suggests it should be 20 miles per hour on Bedford, it's currently a 40 mile per hour speed limit.
Yes.
So we may have finished with Eldridge for the moment.
Okay, super. So we're done with the 4 sections, or the 3 sections, excuse me, so I wanted to talk a little bit about any opportunities that you have. If after this presentation, if you think of something that you wanted to say here or write down in the comments, there are different ways of getting the information to the town and to the design team. There is a project website, and I'm going to leave this slide up for a little bit. So you can go to the project website. There's a ton of information on there. You can take a look at it, see what has been done to date. There's been a number of meetings with stakeholders and working groups that have already been held, and they will be continuing to be held. There's a survey on transportation issues and opportunities, and we can go through that a little bit, Nancy, if you want, or you can just use this link. And I think as part of the invite to this meeting, there was a link to the survey also. And any feedback that you have to the questions would be absolutely fabulous if you could just fill it out so that we can get more feedback on the way that you use these corridors. Some of the questions are, do you use this section of roadway? Do you live in Bedford? Do you live on one of these streets? How do you feel about different modes of transportation? If you had the opportunity for a separated bike lane, things like that, would you use it? Those are the types of survey questions. There's a virtual meeting room. So all of the information that we're providing tonight, and as we advance this project in terms of concept designs and cross sections and roadway alternatives, will be populated in a virtual meeting room, and we're going to show you that in a little bit. So that virtual meeting room, we're going to show you how to navigate through. I think you already have the link to it, as well as on this slide. So the virtual meeting room is kind of cool, and it has links to the survey on the transportation issues and opportunities. And it also has an additional survey that's, I didn't put the link on here, but it's per roadway. So if you have a specific concern on a roadway that's within this project limit, if there's a way to actually get into it and just put a pin where your comment is, and add your comment into the map itself. Sheila is also sending out her email, so if you wanted to contact her directly and talk about things, that's her email address on the slide. So the next steps, so this is the schedule for the project. You can see that it starts in 2021 and it goes to 2024. So right now we are at the first initial public input gathering meeting. So we're talking tonight in October. There's going to be 2 additional meetings that will be presenting alternatives at the second meeting, and that's going to happen next year, the spring of 2022. And then later in 2022, we're going to hone in based on feedback on the different alternatives that were presented in the spring and show you, get closer to a preferred alternative. We will make recommendations on some of the improvements for the roadways, but it really will be the town to make the decision on what works for the town. We're just advising you on what works for you. In addition to that, you can see that there's a number of other meetings, stakeholder meetings with all of the different contingents on the roadways themselves. There's a number of kickoff meetings with the staff and the working groups, and the board of the select board and the planning board. So, the town is making sure that as we progress on the design development of the roadways and the cross sections, it is being presented to the different boards, and there's always an opportunity to listen in to those meetings also. Also, I want to just mention that the town will be taking a look at different funding options for the construction of the projects, and Mass DOT will be contacted, and we will be reaching out to them to talk about the roadway improvements and the eligibility for federal funding. We keep on hearing about the stimulus package that's coming to the floor to get approved and move forward with additional funding to the states, but there's other ways to fund projects like these also. So we will be talking to Mass DOT about that, and then ultimately going to a preliminary design for the project and then having a preliminary hearing for that design. So there's many opportunities beyond this meeting to give feedback, to talk to the town about what you want to see for the roadways and any improvements along the roadways. So with that, I want to thank you for attending. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And Shay, can you take over and can you just navigate a little bit through the virtual meeting room?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So I'm going to stop sharing so you can pick it up, okay? We've gotten 212 comments. I just want to say thumbs up. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate that. So the link to the virtual meeting room, you can see it here. So Shay, can you just move your cursor around a little bit so that people can see, yeah, getting into the virtual meeting room. So if you go down, so you can see that there's all white along the walls of the room. Can you go up to take a look at the walls of the room? Sorry, you were multitasking. I
No, that's okay.
there.
That's okay.
So you can see Station 1, Bedford Street, and all the screens are blank. The slides are blank, and that's because we haven't developed any of the cross sections yet. We wanted to get your feedback first and the feedback from the stakeholders before we start developing any alternatives for the roadways themselves. if you hone in, so if you go to station 2 and then just tap on the existing conditions, yeah, so go to station 2. Any of the mapping that we showed tonight will be on here. This will be updated to show Winter Street, but all of the mapping, all the information that we've provided tonight will be shown in the virtual meeting room. So if you wanted to take a look at what the PowerPoint said, but maybe not go through the PowerPoint directly, the virtual meeting room has all the mapping. It'll have all the sketches and any of the cross sections, any of the information that we're providing to the town will be placed in the virtual meeting room for your viewing. Can you go back to the map, the center table? Yes. So if you go into the virtual meeting room, you can see down below where Shay's Mr. Hand is, that there's a button for the survey, and then there's a button for the roadway comments. So this survey, no, you can go into the surveys. This survey is what I was referring to earlier on transportation issues and opportunities. So if you could just take 5 minutes, it's a very short survey, and just fill it out and give us any more information that you have, that would be absolutely fabulous. I really appreciate it. You do have to answer the questions, even if you put in a number or anything, if you don't want to answer it, to move on. So thank you very much in advance for filling that out. And can you go back to the other one that I want to show also? So the project roadway comments is another survey, but it's a geo form. So what this does is it actually allows you to pick a category based on complete streets. So pick a category, and any of the topics that we talked about tonight that we're looking for feedback on, just click on one of them, put in your comment, ASDF, which was your comment earlier, attach anything that you want to attach, and then select, you can just drop a pin anywhere that you want. So you can actually go into this map and then just touch a location. So bicycling is hard, or I enjoy bicycling here, or something like that, and it will drop down the pin and add your comment to it. So if you wanted to add some more feedback, some more comments, that would be fantastic. You do have to hit submit entry for this to register on our end. So please feel free to test drive the virtual meeting room. It's great. It's fun. We hope that you enjoy it, and we will be populating it as we get information to share with you. So again, just feel free to use it as you want. And with that, I think that we're pretty much done. So thank you very much. This has been terrific. So Nancy, take it away.
Well, I'm happy to say you haven't missed any grand slams in the game. At the top of the first inning, according to ESPN on my phone, there's no score. So please, I hope you will enjoy the rest of the evening. I know we didn't get specifically to every single question, but I hope that we've conveyed the spirit of what we heard tonight. We will, as Trish said, be talking with you on many occasions going forward. Welcome your comments, your ideas. Right. There's just a whole lot of circumference here to talk about. So we really wanted to get you engaged as quickly as we could. So Trish, thank you. Thanks to the rest of our team. Thanks to the town. Nancy. And to all of our participants. We really enjoyed spending this evening with you, and have a wonderful night and the rest of the week, and we'll talk soon. And good night.
Bye.